Okay, so we've talked so far about printing information to the screen. We've got a couple of tools that we can use to print information to the screen. But the problem that we've run into so far, the problem I guess that we're going to run into, is that before too long, we're going to get to the point where we're not going to be entirely sure what information we have until the program actually runs, which is to say that sometimes we are going to want to be able to ask the user for information. We can't do that using any of the tools that we have just yet, but with the scanner class, which we'll learn here in just a second, we can get input from the user. Now there are three steps to using the scanner class. The first one is that we should probably import the scanner. We don't have to do this. We can use the fully qualified name instead, and I'll show you both ways, but it's easiest to just import it. The second thing we have to do is to create a scanner object, and a scanner is just, we can think of this as sort of a thing inside our programs that collects information from a source. In all the programs that we write in this class, that source is going to be the user via the keyboard in the command line. But that's not always going to be the case. Throughout life, you can also use scanners to look through text files if you want. It just takes a little bit more work. In our case, though, we're always going to be asking the user for information. And after we've created our scanner object, we use that scanner to collect input. And I'll show you real fast what this looks like on sort of a high level, and then from here we'll move into making it work. So this is a version of what we had before with this hello world. We've got this public class greeting. Remember, so this is going to be in a file called greeting.java with a capital G. Then we have the public static void main string args, which we need in order to make sure that this program runs. We have a string called name, to which we've assigned the value of Throckmorton, so our good physicist friend makes a reappearance. Then we have a system.out.printf statement, wherein we say hello, %s, and wherever that %s is, we just put the name. Or whatever the name is, we put that in where %s is. When we get input from the user, because we're not always going to be, we can't trust that our user is going to be named Throckmorton, and it might be nice to be able to greet them by name, we're going to make a couple of changes. The first change, and the biggest change, is that we are going to create a scanner, ask the user for their name, and then greet them by name. And we'll break this down step by step. So the first thing that we do, and this is before we have any other lines of code, before the class, before the main method, before any of the other stuff, we have the phrase import java.util.scanner with a capital S. This means that we know that scanner is a class because it starts with a capital letter. And it's inside the utilities folder in the Java main library. For our purposes, though, we just type import space java.util.scanner, and then we can refer to the scanner just by the word scanner instead of by its fully qualified name, which is that java.util. The next thing that we do is we create a scanner. And this is almost like what we did with strings, where we've got the type and then we give it a name. But when we initialize it, in this case, we have to create a new scanner object and then pass to that object the system.in file stream. And the way this looks, we have the word scanner with a capital S, and then whatever name we're giving our scanner, in this case I've chosen to call it SC, short for scanner, but we can call it whatever we want, is equal to a new capital S scanner, and then parentheses, capital S system.in. This is the input stream. This is the stream that we get from the keyboard in most cases. So create a scanner, and then we'll ask the user using system.print what their name is. So that isn't too bad. And then we'll create, and this is an error, that should be a string name is equal to sc.next. We're going to use the next method of the scanner, and all that does is it takes the next white-space delimited word. So I apologize, there's an error in this. There should be the word string right before name. But we use the .next method. And then we can print it, just like we do. Again, when we create the scanner, after we import it, it's the scanner, and then whatever we want to name our scanner, we can name it anything we want, as long as it's a valid variable name, is equal to new scanner system.in. That's how we create a scanner. So let's put this into practice. Let's put this into practice real fast, and then we'll come back and we'll look at some of the methods that are available to us. But right now, we're going to put it into practice, and we're just going to use .next, which takes the next word. So we're here back at our hello world, and we want to ask the user for a username, for a greeting, and then maybe for the year. Maybe for the year. So the first thing that we're going to do before we do anything else is import java.util.scanner. Let's stick a semicolon at the end. And all that lets us do, it doesn't change the file size, it just lets us use the word scanner instead of the fully qualified name. And then what we'll need to do is create a scanner. Now I'm going to call my scanner in, because it's where we get the input. It'll be scanner in is equal to new scanner system.in. You can call your scanner whatever you want, and the only part that changes is going to be this word. Everything else is going to stay exactly the same if you're getting input from the user. Okay, so now what we have to do is go to system.out.print. We'll stick a \f in there to move this to the top of the screen. What is your name? Then we'll put a space, and the reason we're going to put a space is that this way the user can type the name without it being bumped right up against that question mark. And we'll close this. Then we'll say string username, so we're going to create our username, is equal to in, that's our scanner, .next. And then you put some parentheses. That's how we know it's a method, because it has those parentheses. And then a colon, or a semicolon, I'm sorry. Now you can get rid of that variable. And then we're going to do the same thing with our greeting. We're going to say system.out.print. We'll put another \f here just for fun. What is your preferred greeting? Then a question mark, and then a space. And instead of hello, we'll just say in.next. And this is going to cause a few problems if we try to use anything that's multi-line or anything that has more than one word, but that'll be okay for right now. And with the year, we should probably tell the user what year it is just to be safe. You can go system.out.print, put another \f. What year is it? Now the difference here, since our year is an integer, instead of using .next is for strings, it gives us a word, we're going to use in.nextInt. That gives us an integer. And if we look back at our at this particular documentation, we can see that we have .next, which gives us the next word, and this might be numbers, it might be letters, it might be symbols, but it's going to be treated as a word regardless of what it is. We have .nextInt, which takes the next integer and then comes back as a number. So if you try to give it something that isn't a number, it's going to throw a fit and it's going to crash our program. Then we have .nextLine, which is our next full line of text. And with this next full line of text, what that'll do is that'll take everything that we've typed in all the way to where we hit return. Then we get to use the scanner. It'll be okay. Okay, so we're good here. We've still got our greeting, we've got our username, and we've got our year. And what we're going to do is save and quit, and then we'll compile this hello world.java. We don't have any errors, so that's good. And then this Java hello world, when we run it, it'll ask us, what is your name? Now my name is Andrew, so I'll just type that. And what is your preferred greeting? And in this case, I'm feeling kind of piratey, so what if we went with ahoy? And then finally, it's going to ask us what year it is. Now since we're feeling piratey, it's probably somewhere in the 1600s, maybe. And now when we print this out, it'll say, ahoy, Andrew, the year is 1608. Now, we didn't hard code the greeting, the name, or the year. Java did that for us automatically. It took the information that we gave it, which we stored in variables, into greeting, username, and year, respectively, and then printed it out to the screen. Now this particular example isn't necessarily the most interesting in that in that Java didn't really do anything with this other than print it to the screen, but later we'll talk about doing all sorts of conversions to input that we might get. One example of this is going to be that we'll write a program that will take Morse code and convert that into regular English letters. And eventually we'll get to where we can input a lot of Morse code. And by a lot, I mean as many Morse code letters as we want. And then it'll come back with however many, it'll come back with the English equivalent instead of just doing one letter at a time. That'll take us a little bit of time to get there, but we can do it. Now let's run this program again and feed it a couple of different, feed it some different information. Now let's say that our name is Veronica, per the example before. And our preferred greeting is hello. In this case, we'll just go with the regular year, 2014. And now we see, hello Veronica. The year is 2014. Alright, so this has been using the scanner to collect information. These are the very basics. The first thing that you do when you're using the scanner is on your very first line of code, you'll have import java.util.scanner. You might have some comments before that, and that's okay. The next thing that you do is you create a scanner. When you create it, you can think of this right now as just sort of an invocation, but later we'll talk about what all these different parts mean and what they do. You say the word scanner, you give it a name. I usually use the word in, but you don't have to. You can name your scanner whatever you want. Is equal to new scanner system.in with a capital S system. Java is case sensitive. It'll throw a fit if you try to use lowercase. And then we can use the scanner to collect input by first putting the name of the scanner, then a dot, and then whatever method we want to use. When I say a method, I mean it's just a behavior. It's a thing that the scanner can do. So if we want it to collect a single word, we use .next. If we want it to collect a number, we use .nextInt. If we want it to collect a line, we might use .nextLine. If we want to collect a double, which is a double precision floating point number, it's basically a fraction or a number with a decimal point in it, we'd say .nextDouble. There are a lot of things that we can do with the scanner. For right now, though, we'll just leave it at the very basics of collecting information, and then we'll do some more practice with it. So a thing that you can probably do at this point to do some practice would first be to get really comfortable with writing information to the screen. And it's okay if you hard code it like what we had before, where we had the username and the greeting and the year and maybe some other information. Maybe you want to tell the users that something else. Well, you can have that hard coded, get it to where it prints out nice and fancy, and then slowly replace all of these different elements with the scanner itself. And what that'll let you do, once you get really comfortable with this, is this all becomes second nature. It becomes something that you don't even have to think about anymore. Now we're going to move on here in this next video and talk just a little bit about math. And then we're going to talk about error codes, which are a thing that you're going to be seeing a lot of, and that's okay. We're going to talk about them, and I'll show you how to figure them out. See you in a few minutes.